Wholeness, welcome. This is Josh of Inner Skilled, and today I have Ann Hince with me. Ann, what's going on today?
It's good. Thanks, Josh. It's good to be here.
Cool. Well, I had Ann on my other endeavor, Integrating Presence. I think it was April 2022. But for those who don't know Ann, haven't listened to that, or haven't encountered Ann and her work yet, we'll just start with the standard question I like to do is who's Ann Hince and what kind of work does she do?
Okay, I call myself an inner explorer these days because that's what I do. That's what I love doing, and I do it a lot every day. So I do that. That's my inner work, and I share my story. So those are the two parts of what I do. So at this point, now I didn't start this way, obviously, and I'm sure we'll talk about it, but at this point, I can put my awareness inside my head. I can focus on tension that I find in there and I can release it. It will release. It's like an adhesion in the connective tissue or in the tension in the bones. I can hear it release. I can feel it release. It sounds like old fabric ripping. So that's what I'm doing. And it's aligning my skull and my body physically in a way that I didn't know was possible before.
It really is quite amazing if you all will visit Anne's website. She has the x-rays, before and after x-rays. It's quite amazing to see the physical proof of this. And I apologize, I'm getting over a little cold here, so I kind of snorted. I don't know if anybody heard that, and I thought I was muted. Well, this is real life, right? Um, so Anne, I found this too in my own meditation practice. Big meditator, or at least I consider myself a big meditator, around 2 hours a day since 2012, and I too have noticed this when where attention goes, energy flows. That's kind of a cliche saying, but especially with intent, what I find if there's challenging areas in the body, bringing one's awareness and attention to that area of the body with the right intent. Now, sometimes when my, I guess, mind is not in the right place, and it's on overdrive of worry or anxiety or fear around whatever's going on in the body, then it can actually amplify it, and and then keep the mind and emotions spinning out. But I find, for the most part, if I'm getting this right, if I'm kind of calm and centered and bring the awareness to a challenging area in the body with the intent that I want to feel this, to heal this, then a lot of interesting things happen. I don't run away from it. I turn towards it, actually feel it, go into it with the intent of healing it, allowing it to release, unwind, untangle, discharge any kind of extra energy there. I don't know. How would you language this? And I don't know if we need to start there. I would say we can. I would say most people that are listening to this, they're ready to just jump right in on pretty much whatever level we're at here. So
Yeah, words are really tricky. I mean,
yeah, they
and
can
sometimes
be.
I had a conversation with someone recently and I was asking her questions and she kind of compressed the number of words she was using. And what I've realized is we actually have to provide more words so that people can understand it through whatever viewpoint they're seeing it from. So what I would describe, the way I would describe what you just talked about was I'm kind of coming out of the thinking mind and I'm in the feeling mind. So I'm just sensing it. I actually have no intention. I'm not trying to do anything other than put my awareness on it or focus on it because then it feels accepted. It's given the attention that it's wanting and then it releases. But the interesting thing I found through my journey is, I didn't start here at the physical. This is the deepest level of self awareness that I've got to, but it started just with words, with memories, with emotion. So the first level of self-awareness was it's just knowing what's happening right now. How am I feeling right now? What's happening? What are the thoughts in my mind? And then as you work with that, you become aware of the emotions. I had not been aware of my emotions because I'd suppressed everything for so long. So I became aware of my emotions. Then I became aware of the physical sensations underneath the emotions. So if we're feeling something like frustration, we're actually using that word frustration to describe the physical tension in our body. That's how we learn the word frustration in the first place, right? Well, as a child, we'll be frustrated, and maybe an adult somewhere will say, oh, look, you're frustrated, right? And then we connect that word with the physical sensations we're feeling at the time. But as life goes on, we kind of dissociate from those physical sensations. We just use the words. So as you reverse that process, you become aware of the physical sensations underneath the emotions. Then I became aware inside the physical body itself. So it's a huge spectrum of self-awareness, right? And you can kind of know, I can notice it in people in society, right? How self-aware are they? But you can get more and more self-aware by doing inner work.
Oh, absolutely. And a lot of it has to do with causes and conditions too. I notice the space that's held or the space that I'm in internally and externally, how some things can be more supportive for inner work and how it can go deeper, than if I'm in trying to do it when the conditions around me aren't as suitable. And, you know, the thing, and then when you talked about not showing up with an intention, I might push a little bit, but what I mean by that is the way you described it, right? That you show up without any kind of agenda other than, acceptance. I would say that would be part of the intention, right? You're showing up there to show up there without any kind of other thing in you to feel it, right? And so your intention would be to do those two things, right? And so compared to all these other intentions we usually have, it is stripped down to just those core intentions, like you're saying, this is my purpose for doing this, right? This is how I'm going to show up. This is my relationship to this, which is more of a bare awareness relationship than all these other stories and ways that we kind of habitually relate with less awareness, right? I guess hopefully I'm not putting words in your mouth, and please refine what I'm saying here. But just about anything, any kind of action we do has some kind of intention, but it's just, and it could be just to strip away as many intentions as we can, like I'm saying. So I love how beautifully you talk about and how your process and your technique for doing this. It's very straightforward, clear, and so helpful. And the notion of language, I would tend to agree too, for the most part. Some this language thing, it's amazing, and it can help and it can hinder. So that's why I'm still working on mine quite a bit. That we're pointing to experience with our words, right? It's not the same thing as our experience, but we're trying to use language to describe the actual events of what's going on, right? The actual experience, to language these things. And as we know, some people are highly skilled at it, and some people are challenged at it. And I find myself going between these two things quite often. Yes. So
Okay, so let me add something to what you just said. So
sure.
um, if there's an intention, then we're trying to do something, right? We're often trying to do something. When we're trying to do something, we're kind of more in our thinking mind. And early on in this process, someone actually said to me, so that she tried to love something. She tried to love the tension. So I did an experiment. I said, okay, I'm going to try and love versus just accept, just feel it. And I'll give an example of that in a moment. And I realized that the loving it was not doing it. It didn't do what I was feeling the just accepting it was doing. So now let me express the acceptance in a little bit different words. Well, let's do an experiment. So feel your right knee right now. Just put your awareness on your right knee. Don't describe it to yourself. Just feel it. When you do that, you're out of your thinking mind and you're in your sensing mind. You're just sensing how it is. As soon as you describe it or you try and do something to it. You're out of your sensing mind and you're back in your thinking mind. Now, the tension that's in there, it just wants attention, right? Those words, attention, attention. And it's tension inside that I'm focusing on. So I'm just giving the tension, I'm holding it at tension. And when I give it the attention it's asking for, it will relax and release, right? So there's no real intention, it's rather attention.
Yeah.
Right. So the only, in my mind, yes, the intention is to just focus on it and release. But when I do that, I'm out of the thinking mind and I'm in the sensing mind.
And that's what I meant. Yes. The intention in this case is just to point one's attention someplace. And that's it. Yeah. That's the simple, bare intention. That's when, like you're saying, described so beautifully before that, a lot of times we have all these extra ideas of things we should do. And that just, that adds all these other layers, which maybe some can be helpful, some can be not. But this simple notion of just pointing our attention somewhere and feeling the attention and how amazing our body is and how it has its own built-in intelligence, right? I love repeating this, that, we don't have to think about chewing our food, right? Or, okay, walk our leg through. Okay, now I need to put my right leg in front of my left leg and then my left leg in front of my right. Like the body has this built-in intelligence and proprioception, how just parts of the body know where other parts of the body are in space without us having to do anything, really. It is really an amazing thing. So I wanted to ask you too, why do you think we've lost so much awareness of our body? How does this happen? Do you have any theories on maybe on a societal level, whatever's helpful with this? And yeah.
Yeah, that's an easy one. So much has just put layers of, barriers, emotional barriers around us. So it's the programming we experience by our parents, by our caregivers, in school, in society. Every time we're told we have to do something, or we have to do something differently, or we didn't do it well enough, we hold ourselves in tension. Excuse me. And that tension gets kept inside. And then we have traumas. Those traumas get kept inside. And each time we keep that tension inside, we lose connection with how our body feels. And, that's where I started out. After many, many traumas, I was just so emotionally blocked. I didn't know how I felt. So it happens throughout society because we're not taught to just notice what we're feeling and feel it in the moment, like a deer does once it's been chased by a lion or whatever. If it gets away, it will just stand and it will shake and it will allow all that energy to release from the body. We don't do that. We hold on to it and we keep it stored inside.
Yeah, it is really wild how that is, and there's no really formal training and schooling too. And I want to go back to your word love here. And I just want to just clear this up a little bit because, I'm definitely not anti-love. I would say this word love is problematic in the English language, I think, because I can love ice cream, right? I love ice cream, but I think with the other tech, in not so much a technique, but when it comes to trauma and these things, we're talking about how the body gets in the shape. Anyway, I would just say there's so much pain in the world, right? These people, the people in our lives as children, a lot of them, of course, abuse is never okay, right? They've been through so much pain themselves, they're acting out what's been done to them a lot of times, right? And again, I just want to reemphasize that it doesn't make what their actions does right, but we just look around and it just seems to be built into this human experience that we're going to experience, pain and unsatisfactoriness and stress and even suffering in our lives. It's just part of the human condition. It's how we hold that and how we meet up. I know the word compassion is even kind of watered down a little bit. But in Ann's work, I feel that the compassionate thing here is the taking self-responsibility for how things are. You know, we can't always control what's happened to us, but we do have a say in where we place our attention and how we place our attention, right? How we view things and how we respond to things. And that is each and every one of us' own responsibility for what we do with those things. And meeting pain with compassion, I think, is very wise and skillful. And by that, I mean an acknowledgement. That's the big thing. You know, we're acknowledging that pain. We're not denying it. We're not trying to numb it out. We're not trying to run away from it or try to use unhelpful coping strategies. Then there's a care, you know, whatever degree of care we're able to, we care about that, right? We care about that pain. And then there's a kind of this wish that it will release and that we'll know peace. And we can do this for ourselves and others. And I love this notion of release in Ann's work about feeling it and how the body, once it's given that acknowledgement and awareness, how the body wants to help us release this tension and this stress and this dis-ease in the body.
Yes, and when we talk of pain, right, it can be any form of pain, right? We often think of physical pain, but it can be just stress. It can be a thought. It can be an emotion, right? Oftentimes we'll have thoughts and we think, oh, I shouldn't be thinking that, right? So we'll try not to think it. But in that moment, we're suppressing it. We're keeping it stuck inside. So if we actually acknowledge that we're having that thought, and it's okay that we're having that thought, and the technique I used to begin with was called EFT, which is emotional freedom technique, or tapping. So I would tap on that thought, and eventually the thought would actually stop coming to my mind, which actually brings me back to something you just talked about, which is the word love. The word love, I think we all have a very different experience of that word love. So many, many years ago, I used this technique, EFT. I just tapped on the word love. Now, at this point, my subconscious mind had opened up somewhat, so it was easier to access my memories. So as I tapped on that word love, all the images and the memories associated with that word love came to mind. And they were mostly mother memories for me. And my mother was an alcoholic. So it wasn't what we tend to think of as, pleasant love. And that's what my subconscious mind was thinking when it thought or it heard the word love. So I think that's how a lot of us replay, relationships in a similar way to we had to our parents in our love life, because we don't realize we're attracting what we think of as love. It's not really what we want to be love. So if we actually clear out our memories around love, if we clear out the negative parts of those emotions, then we're more likely to attract relationships that feel the way we want them to feel.
And I'm glad you brought that up. That was the other point I wanted to make, that this word love, it is a lot of problematic, and just for the very reasons you've said, that those who are close to us, or some of us, we've had people that are really close to us and caregivers too, say they love us, but then their behavior demonstrates something else, right? And so to me, it's very confusing. It's a cognitive dissonance, and this happens time and time again. So, and also words like God, I mean, it's it can be triggering to a lot of people because of some of the religious backgrounds that people have grown up in that might have not been as helpful as they would have liked. And so that can be triggering for some people too. Yeah, a really important point here. So when we talk about love, that's why I love these. Love these. I mean, I'm still pro love in many regards, but
Yes.
I like to use more specific terms like loving kindness, compassion, like joy, rejoicing in other people's happiness, and then equanimity, which is a real kind of stable, balanced, kind of grandmotherly approach to this. Yeah.
Yeah, I use peace a lot.
Peace
That's
is
my
lovely.
kind
That's
of word.
equanimity, is right
Yes.
hand in hand with peace. And that's the
Yeah.
highest happiness. Peace is the highest happiness as far as I've encountered. And so, Anne, I wanted to ask you a little bit about because you've spent quite a bit of time and study and practice with EFT, and I haven't, I've only done just a little bit of it and not as specific as your exploration, which I find fascinating. What do you know about its relationship to the nervous system, like under the hood, how it works, how bringing up a concept, a thought, a feeling, and then tapping on parts of the nervous system? What's the relationship, and how does this actually work in your understanding?
So yeah, so this kind of comes back to the triggers you talked about, words being triggers. So, and that's kind of how my journey started. I would start noticing when I was triggered. So when we're triggered, we're kind of bringing up an experience we've had before that we've kept inside the body. So our nervous system has an automatic way where it just does the same thing every time. So when we're tapping on these points, these are meridian points on the body with EFT, that is creating an interrupt into that nervous system, the way it normally reacts. And it's allowing that energy of the emotion or the thought or the memory to release from the body. So it has to be done, multiple times. And as you work with something like a memory or a trauma, the energy releases it, but on a layer by layer basis. So if we have a big trauma, which I had with my mother's death, so I tapped through the experience and I let go of the big emotions. The tears flowed, let go of those big emotions, and then I tapped through it again. And as I tapped through it again, more layers were available to me, more details of the story which had been hidden under those big emotions. So then I would tap through it and release that layer. And then I would do it again and again and again, all the way from the beginning to the end, until all the memories that had been hidden inside the nervous system, right underneath those bigger emotions, just came to mind and eventually were just neutral, right? There was no energy left inside that memory, at which point it's kind of like dis-ease that has been cleared out from inside of me. Yeah, so that's what it did. And I did it. I wrote down all my traumas that I could remember throughout my life eventually, because I could see things were happening so fast and I was becoming less reactionary, which is what I wanted. But I wanted it to go faster. And so I worked through all my traumas, like one each day, until I'd gone through them all.
And so, what do you find your relationship to emotions now, before that and after, And what would you say, I mean, on a personal level, but then what kind of wisdom and kind of insights and advice would you have for just people's relationships to emotions in general? Because I know some people tend to hold that at the core of their identity, and other people tend to discard it, like, and not really assign it any value. I think these are the kind of the extremes. I could be wrong here, but I want to pick your brain on this one too.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there are some people who are empaths who actually think it's a good thing to be emotional and to pick up on other people's emotions. And I was somewhat along that lines. I would notice other people's emotions, and I would feel the same way, because I was not stable in myself. So now I am. So I can watch other people be emotional and not get emotional as well. I'm very aware of my emotions and I'm just not triggered in the way I used to be. In fact, I try and go out of my way to find triggers. So I'll watch the news, I'll feel inside, I'll notice what's going on so that I can find deeper healing. But obviously I didn't start there. I mean, I was a mess when I started. So the first thing I did was to start noticing during the day when I was becoming emotional. Just being aware of it, because I wasn't. And to begin with, maybe, the first few days I'd only noticed one time. Right? But as I practiced more and more, I was able to notice more often during the day when I was being triggered. So I was taking my attention from outside of me more to me. So that was kind of releasing one of the barriers or a few of the barriers inside of me. So that was the beginning of self-awareness. And we have to be able to notice, because when we notice how we're feeling, then we're in the present moment with it, and we can only alter it in the present moment. That's why with EFT, you bring the memories back to mind, bring the emotions back into the body, and then we can tap them out. But until we're present with it, we can't do anything.
Very good points. And so the next thing, I wanted to ask about the relationship between thoughts and feelings, thoughts and emotions, and then where the body plays into this too, you know. But go ahead,
Well, there's
how
definitely a
it works.
relationship, but again, it's based on our self-awareness, right? So that word love, when I started out, I just thought I knew what love was because everyone talks about it, right? But I didn't know how it was connected inside of me to my memories about the word love. So there's always a connection. There's always a connection. A word, as we say a word, even in our mind, we're actually moving connective tissue inside of our body. So there is a connection. We're just not aware of it. Right? And part of that was what I came to understand once I was able to put my awareness inside my head, because the pain and the tension inside my left cheek was unbearable. It was so intense. And I realized it had been there my whole life, stuck in my subconscious. I had not been aware of it. So there is so much tension we hold inside that we're just not aware of it. So a lot of people hearing me talk, like, don't necessarily believe what I'm saying because they're not aware of it. You actually have to start this journey and go a little bit along the journey so you have some perspective and you can look back and see the changes and see what you're aware of now, that you can start to actually believe that, yes, okay, there's some things in my subconscious mind that I hadn't been aware of before, but I'm aware of now. And then you realize, oh, there's more. There's always
Oh,
more.
yeah. It is quite amazing, the body. I mean, you know, in it's just some of the Buddhist teachings and practices. The body is on the first foundation of mindfulness is the body, and it's subdivided into six ways. And bear with me with the list here. It's just in and out breathing. That's the big one. I mean, this is constantly going on, right? We miss a half a breath, and that's it for this body, you know. And then we get into our postures. So usually the main postures are sitting, standing, walking, and lying down. I mean, until I brought it to mind now, somebody could have come up to me and said, "Hey, do you know what posture you're in?" And I would say, "Well, of course, that's ridiculous. Of course, I'm sitting." But how much was that at the forefront of my mind? What major posture was I? Completely oblivious to that, basically, right? Even though I can feel kind of my body quite extensively when I'm talking to Ann, because she's done a lot of deep work with this, and my body and my mind is on my body. As far as that perception goes, that wasn't even on my radar really, you know, until I called it to mind. So we're constantly going through this. So every moment of our lives, you know, we have a breath, we have the four postures. Another way is which way are our limbs going in space, right? Are we aware when we're doing certain activities through the day, like even going to the bathroom, you know? So there's that. And then we get into things like the 32 parts of the body. That's when we go really deep in. It just happens to be subdivided into 32 different parts of the body. I mean, how aware am I now of my liver cells, you know? I mean, some advanced yogis and practitioners, they talk about a cellular awareness. I mean, how many cells in our body are arising, living for a while, and passing away? They say in science, you know, every 7 years, we get a whole new. Every cell in our body is regenerated. You know, I don't know exactly how accurate that is or not, but there is so much going on in our body that's with the autonomic nervous system that we're just not aware of. Yet it is possible to be aware of these things. I mean, they've put yogis in different tests where they've gone into nirodha, which is a certain refined state of consciousness where they just almost everything shuts down. Their heart starts beating slower. There's way less of hardly of any discernible respiration. I mean, it's quite profound. Then we get into things like four elements practice, where they talk about just all physical matter. It has these characteristics of earth, air, fire, water, you know, and the different characteristics of that going throughout the body, right? Like we have more watery organs, or the fluids in the body are the most discernible ones. And then we have solidity like the bones. You know, we have the temperature element, like the body heat, and then what am I, the air, the flow of airy substances and cavities in the body. And then the last one is, this is all great and fine, but we haven't gone beyond death yet either. So there's a what's called a charnel ground contemplation, where we're actually visualizing if this body were to die and no one were around it, all the different ways that it could decompose. And it sounds a little morbid, but that is the actual nature of this physical body under those conditions, right? And it's not to get freaked out or morbid, it's to realize how precious this life is, and how aligned are we in with reality or not. So when the time comes, then we can be kind of more mentally prepared, that we spent time working with how what is this body subject to, what's subject to decay, rot and decomposition under the right circumstances at our death. So don't waste any time, because every moment of this life is very precious. So yeah, the body is quite an amazing thing. And what have you found about the wonders of the body too?
Oh, it's incredible. My experience, I mean, I'd love to talk to one of those yogis who have an awareness of selves, because when I'm putting my awareness inside my body, I believe I'm moving my awareness through the connective tissue. So I might be I can tell when I'm in a bone versus no bone because it's denser, but I can't tell an organ versus a non-organ because it's just the connective tissue. And it I'm sensing the tension versus the no tension. So I can move around my body, but there's definitely a lot of tension in there. So even if we're laying down in bed at night, we're holding a lot of subconscious tension in our connective tissue, but we're not aware of it. But it's there. I can absolutely guarantee, unless you are absolutely physically perfectly aligned, right, and have no emotional triggers, then you have some tension stored in your connective tissue, and doing some inner work would help to alleviate that stress, that tension. So yeah, I guess that's an answer there.
Sure, yeah, and even, well, the one thing we can feel though, if we have something going on in our gut, right? If food's moving around or something like this, and digestion, so that's the intestines,
Right.
it's
But
it's
that's
wherever
only
we
the
go.
conscious part of it, right?
That's
There
right.
is also more still that you're not conscious of.
Oh, absolutely.
It's
Yeah,
really mind blowing once you
it
become
really
aware
is.
of the tension inside that we weren't
Yes.
aware of. I mean, I was not aware of this pain in my left cheek and the tension that went all the way across my body, down my right leg to my foot. The tension stored in the connective tissue there had been in my body 50 years and I had not been aware of it. So,
So
yeah, it's
wild, isn't
huge.
it? And things like, the liver, of course, I can't kind of feel that immediately. So if I do experiment like a practice with that, what I'll do is I'll hold the intention to, I want to experience what the liver is like, and just be open to whatever comes, and just coming back again and again to that intention. And then sometimes images may arise, maybe there will be some kind of sensation, maybe some weird phenomena will start happening too. That's happened before too. So it's just an interesting experiment. So what would it be like to sense and feel the liver directly? It's not what we think it will be in the mind's eye, obviously, because like we can't see with the physical eye. Or it might have some kind of, we might have a different experience that we're not prepared for too. But the point is to keep coming back to it again and again, or even just saying the word out loud, or saying it silently, and seeing how that feels throughout the rest of the body, compared to like something like saying snot, or these different things in the body. So
Okay, so let
yeah.
me go back to
Sure,
just
please.
something
Yeah.
you said then. So you said it would be seeing it in the mind's eye, which kind of is like the imagination, right? You're imagining what you're thinking the liver is like.
Some kind of
Again,
image, some kind of mind image, right? Yes.
right. And oftentimes when I was like feeling an emotion, like feeling the sensations underneath the emotions, a memory would pop into my mind. As the tension released, a memory would pop into my mind and then just disappear. So that's connected. But right, going back to what I was saying about sensing the knee, right? When I'm going inside, I am actually seeing. It wouldn't still be seeing. I say seeing slash sensing. So I am not in my mind's eye. I am feeling movement down in my liver area. Right? I don't, as I said, I don't actually go to the organs, but I know the physical location where it is. I could put my awareness down there, and I actually feel movement wherever it is I'm working. So it works so much in my jaw these days. I actually feel my awareness in there. It's really weird, to be honest. And I can sometimes look in the mirror and I can see movement in the connective
Mhm.
tissue as I'm working in there. So it is different than what we say as being in the mind's eye or the imagination. It is actually feeling it.
Yes, and these are feeling it, sensing it. I think the other way that I language it sometimes is some people can, like you're saying, either see the movement or feel the sensations of the movement, right? The different types of sensations, and there's all kinds of language we can put to sensations. Like for unpleasant sensations, we can use like burning, stabbing, itching, throbbing, pulsing, throb, yeah. So these type of things, and then more pleasant sensations, and that's what I want to ask you about too, because we've been addressing more of the kind of challenging side of working with the body, but there's pleasance. There can be warmth, like a glowing or a tingling sensation, vibration. So, how do you? One of the ways is to reduce all of our feelings down to either pleasant, unpleasant, or neither of these. And this is pretty much all of our experience in life, moment by moment. We'll have this kind of valence of unpleasant, pleasant, or neither of these. So, if you want to talk a little bit about that, especially what you do with pleasant feelings, how you view and work with those, because we can have some of the good stuff here too, right?
Right. So in my excuse me, in my experience, it is just the negative emotions that are stored with tension in the body. The positive emotions are not stored the same way. I don't know exactly how they're stored, but I know they're not stored as tension in the body. So when I'm sensing, seeing, sensing inside, I can sense the tension versus the no tension, which is the darkness versus the light, right? When we release the tension, underneath is light. So I've realized over the years that all we have to do is find the darkness, find the tension, and when we let it go, the light is already there. So the positive thoughts come naturally on their own. The positive emotions come naturally on their own once we release the negative emotions, the negative traumas, all those things that have stuck inside as tension. And I kind of think of it as that being the soul freed up inside of the body. And when it's freed up, it's going to feel better.
I've noticed this in my experience too. Some people think that or say that like some types of pain is just kind of congealed or trapped light, and then when that releases, yeah, that frees up, yeah, room for how we kind of are more naturally, right? And the other thing I want to touch back on is this notion of memories being stored inside the body. So you've experienced it, I've experienced this. Is a kind of a common report among practitioners that there'll be certain types of memories and occurrences in life that are associated with certain areas of the body, yeah, so I had a one healer come and tell. I've told this before, but he said, "Well, you have a lot of resentment for your father in your shoulder." And when I was doing yoga years ago, I couldn't quite get that shoulder over my, oh, straight up ahead. And I said, "Oh, it impacted me emotionally when he told me that." But I didn't argue with him or say he was wrong. I didn't say he was right either. But you could tell by the emotion in my voice that there was something going on there. So I was like, oh, thank you, like this. And so then when I went and sat with it, and then I put my awareness on it, and there was a huge release and a realization. kind of the visual memories, I could see or feel or just somehow know that that was the case. And of course, there was weeping involved, and there was a huge release. And then I could lift my shoulder further back after that, and it wasn't quite the same thing. So that was kind of the most obvious, and it had something. Who knows how long it would have been before I found that on my own, but it had a really guided healer or a really skilled teacher, even just pointing that out. So I'm grateful
Yeah.
for that.
So you release the tension in the connective tissue in your shoulder. Now, if you had got that information from that healer, you could have accessed it through multiple different ways, right? So he said it was resentment for your father. So you could have brought up the memories of your father where you felt resentment, and you could, if you knew EFT, you could have tapped through those memories. That tapping itself would have also accessed the shoulder, right? You accessed it through the physical itself, right? So that's another way of doing it. But all of those different ways are portals into that stuck energy. You don't have to have the depth of awareness to be able to go into the physical itself. You can just start with the words and the memories.
That's so beautiful, and I'm all for all these different healing techniques. There's something for everyone, no matter what their skill level, where they're at now. And of course, we both agree, the more awareness, the better. I don't think there we can ever have too much mindfulness and awareness. So yeah,
And when you have that awareness inside of you, right, when you have a depth of self-awareness, you can see it outside of you as well, right? You can understand what's happening in the world more. You can see when people are lying more, right? You can just see what's happening outside of you in a way that you couldn't before.
as within, as without. That's right. It's not just some kind of, okay, well, this is just another, physical therapy type thing, but it does increase discernment. And discernment, as we know, we need that in all areas of our lives to make choices, to gather the right information and to discern the right information. What is credible, what is not, what is helpful, what is not. What do I need to be spending my time on? Is truthful and honest? Am I being truthful and honest? Yeah, so this is discernment, and then that can lead to wisdom, where kind of our choices can just arise kind of from the heart almost, and we just kind of, I don't know, intuitively know how we need to live our lives and the choices we need to make and the things that are going to lead towards our long-term happiness and well-being and that of others. So, yep. Well, Anne,
Yeah.
it's been quite a pleasure just chatting today. I want to ask where people can find you online. So please give your website and anywhere else you would like to connect with people online. The books you have, videos, if you have any courses, events, anything else you want to draw people's attention to with your work, and then also to take us out on a message here. What would you like to leave those listening and watching with?
Okay, thank you. So I have my website, which is annhince.com. And if you go there, there is a free PDF download of my summary of EFT. It's 2 pages, very detailed. So you can learn EFT very quickly. That's there. I'm very active on Facebook, and I have a YouTube channel with lots of videos that show this work, the different stages and how you can go about it. I do have 2 books. I have A Pathway to Insight, which again details the steps of this journey in detail, and A Pathway to Insight workbook. If you want to do all your deep shadow work, those questions in there will bring up all your shadow to start working on. That's plenty there. Um, and the message. There's 2 things. I mean, the first step for everyone is just start noticing what you're feeling during the day. Just start doing that. Anyone can do that. You can do it anywhere. It's easy. The other thing is that we kind of touched on this a little bit, but there is so much more depth to life than we know right now. A lot of us are depressed, we're possibly suicidal. I was in the past. But once you do this work, once you have that depth of awareness inside of you, you see so much depth of awareness outside of you. And there is so much more to life, and it can involve all sorts of changes. I mean, even my voice has changed. I can sing different notes than I ever could before. And I didn't know that was possible. I can feel music inside of my body, not just with my ears, right? Which makes listening to music so much more satisfying. So that's my challenge to everyone, is start doing this work and notice the changes.
Cool and beautiful, and may all beings everywhere come to know their highest happiness and the true heart's release. Bye, everyone. You're welcome.